Have you ever finished an entire day feeling exhausted, only to wonder what you actually accomplished? You were busy. There were emails, meetings, phone calls, problems to solve, people to help. From the outside, it looked like a productive day, but deep down, something felt unfinished. And this is not because you were lazy. It was because you weren't sure any of it moved your life in the direction you actually wanted to go. Most people think that's a time problem. I don't. I think it's a clarity problem. Imagine I handed you a compass and said, start walking. You probably wouldn't move. The first question would be, toward what? And that's exactly the question many of us forget to ask at the beginning of each day. We wake up, open our phones, answer messages, react to whatever is waiting for us. We start moving before we decided where we're going. Movement isn't difficult. Direction is. And that's why so many people feel busy but unfulfilled. They're making progress, just not necessarily toward what matters most. Here's what I've come to believe. Clarity doesn't give you a perfect map of the future. It gives you a trustworthy compass for the next step. And that's enough. Because a meaningful life is rarely built by seeing everything. It's built by consistently moving in the right direction. That's where clarity begins. One of the biggest myths about clarity is that it's something you either have or you don't. I don't think that's true. I think clarity is something you practice. Think about driving through a heavy fog. The fog doesn't disappear all at once. You simply see far enough to keep moving. Then, as you move, the next section of the road becomes visible. Life works much the same way. Many people delay action because they're waiting for complete certainty, the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the guarantee that everything will work. But clarity rarely arrives that way. It usually arrives one faithful step at a time. And that's why confusion can be so exhausting. When everything feels equally important, everything competes for your attention. I'll say that again. When everything feels equally important, everything competes for your attention. Every opportunity feels urgent. Every decision feels heavier than it needs to be. And without clarity, even simple choices become mentally expensive. But something remarkable happens when you become clear about what matters most. You stop asking, what should I do? And you begin asking, which choice moves me toward the life that I'm intentionally building? And that's a much better question. Because clarity isn't about knowing every answer, it's about having a reliable filter. A compass doesn't remove the mountain. It doesn't shorten the trail. It doesn't promise perfect weather. It simply keeps pointing in the right direction. Clarity does the same. It doesn't eliminate difficult decisions. It eliminates unnecessary wandering. And that's why I become less impressed by people who are constantly busy. And I'm far more impressed by people who know why they're busy. And there's a difference. One is motion, the other is purpose. And purpose almost always begins with clarity. Here's something I've noticed. The people who seem the clearest aren't the people with the easiest lives. They're the people who have learned to say no more often than yes. Not because they're closed-minded, but because they understand something important. Every yes costs something. You say yes to one opportunity, you're saying no to another. You say yes to constant availability, you may be saying no to deep work. You say yes to everyone else's priorities, you may slowly lose sight of your own. And that's why clarity isn't just about knowing where you're going. It's about knowing what you're willing to leave behind. Now, a compass doesn't point in every direction. It points in one. That's its value. The same is true in your life. The moment everything becomes equally important, nothing truly is. And that's why clarity creates peace. It removes the burden of trying to do everything. It gives you permission to do what matters. I found that many people don't actually struggle with decision making. They struggle with decision fatigue. They're making hundreds of unnecessary choices every day because they haven't made a few important ones in advance. When will I work? What deserves my best thinking? What kind of person am I trying to become? Answer those questions first, and dozens of smaller decisions become much, much easier. And that's why clarity isn't an event, it's a practice. Every morning, you're quietly answering one question, whether you realize it or not. What will guide my decisions today? And if you don't answer it intentionally, circumstances will answer it for you. Notifications, deadlines, interruptions. Those things make excellent servants. They make terrible compasses. And that's why I've come to believe that clarity is less about seeing further. It's more about seeing first. Knowing what matters before life begins asking for your attention. Because once your direction is clear, the next step usually is too. And that's all clarity has ever promised. Not the entire journey, just enough light to take the next faithful step. So, what does clarity look like tomorrow morning? It starts before you check your phone, before you open your email, before the world begins telling you what deserves your attention. Take 5 quiet minutes and ask yourself one question. What matters most today? Not what can I get done, not what's waiting for me, but if today went exactly the way I hoped, what would matter most? Write down one answer, just one, and then let that become your compass. Throughout the day, you'll be tempted to drift. Someone will interrupt you, a new opportunity will appear. Something urgent will compete for your attention. And when it does, pause. Don't ask what feels most pressing. Ask, does this move me toward what matters most? And that single question can change the direction of an entire day. I've also found it helpful to end the day the same way I began it. Not by asking, how much did I accomplish, but did what mattered most receive the best of me? Those are different measurements. One evaluates activity, the other evaluates alignment. And alignment is what creates a meaningful life. That's today's daily focus. Choose one priority before the day begins. Prioritize it. Return to it whenever your attention begins to drift. Because clarity isn't something you discover once. It's something you practice every day. Every morning you choose your direction. Every decision either strengthens that direction or quietly pulls you away from it. And the more faithfully that you return to what matters most, the clearer your life becomes. Imagine yourself a year from now, not after a perfect year, but after a year of choosing clarity before activity, of asking what matters before asking what's most urgent, of making decisions with a compass instead of reacting to every passing demand. What do you think would change? Your calendar might look different, your work might become more meaningful, your relationships might become deeper because you were fully present instead of mentally scattered. Most importantly, you would become different. Because clarity doesn't simply change what you do, it changes who you become. That's the quiet lesson of this phase. You don't build an intentional life by managing more. You build it by deciding what deserves your life in the first place. Think back to where we've come. You learn to notice your attention. You learn to direct it, protect it, choose what deserved it, respond intentionally when life changed it. Now you've learned to begin each day with clarity. Those aren't separate skills. The world will always offer you more opportunities than you can accept, more information than you can process, more demands than you can satisfy. Clarity gives you permission to stop trying. Not because those things don't matter, but because not all of them matter equally. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, reach for your compass. Ask yourself what matters most today. Then let that answer guide every decision that follows. Because a meaningful life isn't built by doing everything. It's built by faithfully doing what matters most. And remember, clarity begins when you stop asking what you could do and start asking what matters most. Today's daily focus. Before your day begins, identify one priority that matters most, write it down. Return to it throughout the day whenever distractions compete for your attention. And here's a memorable principle. Clarity begins when you stop asking what you could do and start asking what matters most.